Hello, welcome to Miniature Realms. My name's Stuart. We've just had one of the biggest announcements for Warhammer the Old World since it launched. A massive summer, I would guess, ahead with 3 faction releases, including a brand new faction. We've had lots of discussions since the game has launched around rules and meta and balance and how well the game is supported by Games Workshop through miniatures, through rule support, through FAQs and all the other things that come together as part of community. There's endless Facebook groups and discussions on social media. So how is the community doing? Where are we at with the community right now for Warhammer the Old World? So I thought it would be really fun to discuss that, rather than me just talk to the camera with a few slides like I often do for these discussion things. I thought I'd get someone on to join in with me and actually have a really good chat. So I've got Dan from the Wondering Warlocks, which is an event and community group up in Sheffield, and he's just started a podcast along with a couple of other chaps called the Rallying Cry as well. So the perfect person to join in and have a discussion around the Old World community.
Miniature Realms is proudly sponsored by Counter-Attack Bases. They stock a wide range of counters, gaming aids and movement trays for multiple game systems and offer custom items to suit your club or even your podcast or YouTube channel. Check out the link in the video description.
Hi Dan, thank you for agreeing to come on and talk all about the community, and you're the perfect person to do it because, well, you run a bit of a community up there in Sheffield. You've got a club night you're running, and you're running events of different kinds as well. So yeah, perfect discussion, and we've been chatting quite a lot behind the scenes anyway, and you've just started a podcast, and it's just perfect time to get you to come on, have this chat, and then also sort of pimp your own stuff a bit as well. So thank you very much. But for the audience who weren't sure with my little intro before we cut to us here, give us a little bit of a background about what you're doing up in Sheffield with your podcast and Wondering Warlocks.
Yeah, so me and 2 other guys are running a podcast called the Rallying Cry podcast. It's just basically 3 guys that have been playing Warhammer a long time, just having a chat really. Very much like yourself, where we pick the topics out of, what's recently happened, and we just go a bit more in depth to it. We were talking off it before the recording about it was supposed to be 45 minutes. They're nearly 2 hours long, some of these, so perfect driving length. But yeah, we have a chat about all the recent stuff, what we've been doing in terms of the actual hobby within the week or the 2 weeks in between the episodes, and just generally what around our own kind of areas and communities, what we've been doing in terms of the hobby side of it. And then, yeah, the Wondering Warlocks, which is me and myself, my friend Al, who started this up. It started literally because of Old World. So he'd never played Warhammer Fantasy and wanted to try it. I was like, oh, cool, we'll get into it. Got the 2 starter sets. He had the Tomb Kings, I had the Bretonians. Started it all through, and I said to Al, goes, there's a guy up in Hull that wants to sell a lovely set of terrain. I mean, people have seen him on social media, our terrain setup. We went up there, bought that. I went, well, now we need somewhere to play. So we went to our local gaming club, Patriot Games. So they essentially let us hire a room out for free to put on what people need for games. So we started with demo games. When we first started, there were a lot of the community getting into the Old World. Previous players of 8th Ed. We've got a lot of we call them the old guard up here, because they're the old fantasy players that have been playing it for years and years, and they've all started playing it again. They're all still very good at the game. It's a new edition of sorts. And then we just kind of grew from there. We've started doing obviously the community things. So we do it on a Wednesday. We run Old World Club on a Wednesday, where we just get guys coming down on our Discord, put in, oh, can we come down and have a game? Yeah, cool, we'll sort you out. So we'll do like pairings. So people of right skill, kind of skill. It's hard to judge sometimes because you don't know how good people are, but we try and match people with different people. Lay all the terrain out for them, so we set everything up for everybody. They just come down and play a couple of games, and they're free to go and leave. And then at same venue, we started running events as well, which we've been doing them probably about 6-7 months now. Just again to help the community. So we did start originally with absolutely zero requirements. Like you could come with plastic models as long as they had models on, not bases, obviously, because people were still building their armies, painting them, and then we've started now doing kind of all fully painted armies, which people are taking in their stride, which is good. It gives them something to paint for. So it's like a nice little push, hobby push. Like, come on, guys, let's get this, let's get these armies painted. But yeah, I think it's helped build the community, the events as well, because it's people are then coming, have got almost a reason to come to the club, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Where they come and test their list, or they batter ideas off each other, and it's just a real nice feel for the old world. And I mean, up in Sheffield itself, we're lucky in a way because we've got 4 kind of places where you mainly game. There's a big. In fact, I know there's 2 clubs and there's 3 shops that have got gaming space. So we're really lucky at events. We've got a lot of a local area, and then there's a load of like local clubs as well, like loads of church halls and working men's clubs that put nights on for people. So yeah, we're lucky in that sense that we can try and grab all of those people and bring them all into one community, and it's working. It's paying dividends because we've got that many players up here now that play all well, which is good. So yeah, and then in terms of the events, we've got lots of different rules, not rules packs as such, but yeah, I said they are rules packs. They're different ways. So we organise different comps. I know we're going to go talk about it in a minute or two, but we've got different rule sets for different events, and it's doing all right. I'm not, yeah, it's doing all right. So quite happy with it.
It just sounds like, I mean, we chat a bit anyway, and I follow your profiles and your Wondering Warlocks, and we'll put links to stuff below. If you've got a Facebook page, you can follow your events and things. But it just felt like there's this really nice genuine support for your local community, not only through the club play, bringing those new players in, like you said, there's terrain there for them, but then the events and they're different kind of comp packs and things. And so you've got quite yes, it's in a small area, but you've got quite a good range of experience with different kinds of play and different styles of game. And you've obviously been to events and things yourself, so you've played some probably pretty hard-nosed games of old world, but you've played some narrative games of old world as well. So rather than coming from all of one place, and that's why you're perfect for this discussion today, really. So we take it back to the beginning. We've just had the most amazing reveals, and the community is absolutely buzzing. So it feels like it's a positive time to talk about this, because there have been a couple of minor dips, like when we're waiting for the dwarves, that kind of thing. But the community is in this really good place at the moment. It feels like, and I don't know anything here, but it feels like we're coming to the end of the first cycle. I would say the last quarter of it. It feels like these 10 factions were always planned. I've seen quite a few funny comments on groups in the next few days saying, yes, they finally brought out Cathay because they heard the community was angry. No, this is years in the planning.
Yes.
when they said a year ago that they had no plans, it's because they were managing time and expectations. They clearly knew they were going to do this. They didn't go, best start designing those models. But the community is in this really buzzing place. So I thought, well, let's talk about where the community is at, and we can talk about the whole community. So online, how it is. We're talking about at a club level, new players, the meta and the competitive side, which I don't really go to, but I follow online. You've been to a bit, and just sort of kind of balance it all and talk generally around it. So with that in mind, as a general thing, do you think the community is in a good place right now, or a bad place, or?
I think it's in a good place personally from my experience up here, yeah. And to be fair, I mean, all the way down to Robert, the TSN. There's a few. I think there's a couple in Colchester that I know about. So there's events popping up everywhere, which can only be good for the community, right? So you've always got somewhere to play. The only thing I'd probably say about it is sometimes it's too many, but that's they're all over the country, so that's probably not as bad a thing as it sounds, but. Yeah, I think it is because it's so accessible as well. And I was only having the conversation yesterday, actually, with one of my other friends who just plays AOS. And I've actually just bought a beastmen army off him. So, but he was kind of because obviously they're going out of all AOS now. And he was like, oh, well, in terms of accessibility, you're paying probably double for the AOS version than you are the old world version, because the models are so much more, or you get more for your money, in the old worlds. So I think a lot more people, if you had the choice between the two, I'm like, well, I will pay that much because I'm going to get that much. And, and I think that helps the community definitely. because it is a lot more. I find it's a lot more accessible, and the battalion boxes, for instance, really good value on all of
Yeah.
them. Well, on most of them, not all of them, because you need more battalion boxes. But
Yeah.
I think in terms of the community as a whole, I, I can't say that there's been anything bad said about it at the minute, or bad fields. You know what I mean? And obviously, we talk about the schedule of releases and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
that's out of anyone's control, isn't it? So
True.
yeah, I think the community is in a great place, because you can pretty much go anywhere, I believe now. Well, anywhere that plays any kind of hobby games, and you'll probably be able to get a pickup game of Old World now, which is
Yeah.
pretty good, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You do hear sometimes people in the Facebook groups will say, I'm struggling in my local, and that's always going to happen. You will
Yeah, of
find
course,
the
yeah.
black holes where certain game systems aren't played and others are. But it does feel like there's events everywhere,
Yeah.
especially all over the world as well. You've only got to look at your Best Coast parent website, and there's just
Oh, yeah,
full of
yeah.
events everywhere. The only thing I'd say, and this will come naturally, is there's probably not many huge GT sort of sized
No.
that there was at the end of 8th edition. So there's no South Coast GT. I think those guys, or that club is running an event. I think they've just run a
Yes.
South Coast thing. I don't know how
Yeah.
big it was though, but
Yeah.
back in the heady days of 150 players plus, back when,
Yeah.
I don't know if you were aware of Heel and Hammer, when Dan Heelan and Wayne, we had a podcast, but they used to
No.
run the South Coast GT, which was just
Yeah.
sell out in 3 minutes, 150 players.
Is that the one down in Bournemouth, wasn't it? Is it in
It's
Bournemouth?
Portsmouth, I think,
Portsmouth, yeah.
around that way. But yeah, so
Same thing.
those kind
Same
of
area.
Sheffield Slaughter, and I imagine if you got some
Yeah.
of the old
Yes. Yeah.
Warhammer guys are turning up at your club, I imagine some of those guys may have been part of that. If you,
Yeah.
so there were some really big events, but those will come.
Yes, they will.
And there's venues there already for them. There's enough big venues around, so those things will come along. I think Element Games have had a couple of big ones as well, so
Yes.
it does feel good. And a lot of the things people were moaning about or have moaned about have kind of ironed themselves out. A lot of the stock issues, you can store stuff goes out of stock, but if you go on the website now, most of it's there. Some people moan about some of the battalion boxes, but it's just the way they're playing the game, maybe, and the kind of list they're trying to build. Regardless, they're both valid, whatever way you want to play it.
Yeah.
I mean, that new Wood Elf one looks amazing in terms
I think
of
that's the best value one by a long shot. Yeah.
I'm really shocked that there's not just Glade Riders in there, and you've got the one. I'm like, what? Maybe someone pressed the wrong button on a spreadsheet, and that was it. They took a photo of them and go, we're going to have to go with them now.
Yeah. Because that's what I was totally expecting. That was what I was expecting. Yeah. Glade Guards, Glade Riders.
Yeah. That was it. I thought that would be it. I'm really shocked what's in there, but it's great. So yeah, I think overall now the general feeling seems to be mostly positive. There'll always be negative parts, but then that's in wargaming, and it's the internet, because where you get most of your negativity. You don't tend to find that in clubs.
Yeah. The internet is definitely a good what's the word? A shepherd with some certain hobbies, where it leads, like you say, it does lead some communities. But I think we spoke about this the other day, didn't we, about the way like the list building and stuff, and within lists as well. It's because it's so diverse compared to just putting war scrolls on a battle scroll or data sheets. No list should be the same, really, in theory. I mean, obviously it does happen, but yeah, but there's still that room to tinker with certain things, or take this item off, put this weapon on, and that's the part I love about it. I love crunching the lists. It's one thing I've always been good at. Not necessarily being great at the game, but I can write lists.
Yes.
So that's one thing I've always been quite excited.
Part of the hobby you can do when you can't get to play. You do that on your own, on your phone, in your lunch break, when you're taking an extended sit-down morning break, depending on your work play. All of those kind of things, you could sit there. In fact, even my 10-year-old, who doesn't play much with me, he discovered the 500-point format that was lovely hidden in that nice new scenario. I explained it to him. He's got Old World Builder on his iPad. And that was it. He got the bug, and he's like, "I've made this list and made this list and I made this list." It's like, "Oh dear, you've got the list building bug." so it just shows how important, how much fun you can get from that as well. So how have you? I think that blends nicely into the casual play. So if you think about your club night, so how are you finding the players turning up to play? What kind of games are they playing? What kind of things are they looking for?
A bit of everything. So at the moment we've got a local league going off which I set up. So essentially it was people sign up for it, put your name down. I'll get you all on a spreadsheet. So each individual person has now got like a roster. So they've got their name at the top, and then everyone else's names who's joined the league in that, and they just play them once within the league, which is 1,500 points. I think that's pretty much the only comp I put on it. What else did it? Oh no, I think I put it. I think it was 33% on carrots as well, so no one just brought up a chaos dragon or something along those lines.
Yeah.
So we've got some slight comp there, but everyone's took to it, and I think so. Since we started it at the beginning of March, I think we've had 33 games so far. So in 4 weeks, that isn't that bad because we do get a few who play twice, which it can be competitive. But so what else I've done is I've said you have to stick with your faction. You can change your lists within that faction. So people have just been trying loads of stuff. So it's kind of one of those where it's competitive because you want to win the game because you're playing in a league, but you're also experimenting as well. But in terms of it's quite diverse, to be quite honest. We have 2 or 3 guys that come and just purely want to play just games, but on narrative boards. So we've got like a massive fortified manor castle on a hill, which we put out, and then we've got rivers, and we've got like sieges. We had a couple of siege games before. We've got like King of the Hill type terrain. So we've got the generic 2 hills, 2 trees, 2 buildings to go on the competitive ones, which obviously what we use for the our events. But then we've also got we've got like a jungle board for Lustria.
Nice.
Tomb King board, which is all the pyramids and stuff like that. We've got the castles. We've got a I forget what you call it. It's like a village, but it has a pub. We've got loads of like little farmland things as well. We've got all sorts. We've got a dwarf stronghold as well. We've got, and to be honest with you, I've just finished printing some Bretonian tents. Well, I'm actually going to use for full tilt. If you've seen that,
Yeah.
I want to run like a little full tilt thing at the community as well because it's easy. It's 3 nights and you just joust. So we've got tents and stuff, and I'm just planning a Cathay board as well, which I've just bought some hooks for. So yeah, in terms of the community, it is a bit of everything. I'd probably say because of the league, I think we're probably teetering on a bit more competitive, but we do, like I said, we do have a lot of narrative. Me personally, I think because I actually enjoy running the events, I tend not to play as competitive as I probably can. Even though I do go to events. I like to just have narrative, nice games where we play, just normal lists, like millions of infantry and stuff like that. But we also we cater for pretty much anyone who wants. So we've had a couple of 4th edition games down. We've had a 5th edition game down. We've even got War Master coming down in a couple of weeks as well. So
Nice.
The whole fantasy bug has taken over Wednesday nights, which is great.
It sounds like it's working though in a positive way. And on back when I did play 7th and 8th edition, I didn't go to many events because I worked weekends back then. It's weird now. I've got 3 weekends, but I've not because I've got kids. But I felt back then that the games were friendly and you could have a conversation with someone, but there was an awful lot of people always practicing for the next event, as you'd want to do, and you'd always be playing a version of a certain comp pack, and there would be the dominant ones. I think we're starting to see the emergence now of the community pushing those, and I reckon in another 12 months, we'll have a couple of dominant comp packs, whether that's, I'm talking about comp packs rather than FAQ changes, that kind of thing. I'm talking about generalized comp packs, and you'll end up with a couple of dominant versions. I'm just wondering, are you seeing any of that impact your club night? I'm guessing no, because of the way you were running it, I suppose. There's less of that.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're pretty lax with how people want to play the games. Like we had the again, it's not been a compact, but obviously the Renegade FAQ. We had a couple of people try that out last week, and they quite enjoyed it. But they play Legacy armies, so we had Al. He's going to the Black Coast GT, I believe it's called. I can't go unfortunately now, but so they've got their own missions in there as well. So he wants to play a couple of those. But I believe they're the old ones from the 8th ed. books. They were
Right.
slightly different, aren't they? The old world ones, if I believe.
Slightly, yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm not sure they'll answer the maybe some of the questions that are around now, but that
no.
might just be misremembering them.
Yeah. So, well, he tried a couple of those missions, and to be honest, we've even had a guy who comes down regularly, Jamie. He wrote a mission to play with his friend while he was down there as well. So,
Brilliant.
we're pretty. We will let pretty. We essentially set the canvas, I guess, and people can draw their art on it. We don't mind, and. I mean, even the mission Jamie wrote up, I actually said I'd have a look at it because I might want to put something like that in the event, in my event, or even put it in something like the league, or just on the league. We only play open war, for instance, so just to maybe spice it up one week or something. I might say, right, we're playing a different mission for your league game this week. But yeah, no, we're quite lax with how we let people play. But yeah, I'm all up for hearing new. I'm not that I'm getting bored of the missions, but it just needs, do you know what I mean? It just needs something a little bit more now because it's been just over a year, and just give us something that I know they have done with the high off release things, but yeah, just something a bit more what's the word, like official, within the rule book, like added in.
Yeah, I'd like to say. Well, I made a whole video on it, but yeah, I'd like to see that because I think it's a positive thing. I'm a super casual gamer, but I also think the community like to be told what to do, and it's no surprise to me that the guys that turn up at your club are happy for you to say, well, this is the points level, yeah, you pick your opponent, but this is the mission and this is the table setup, because people kind of like to be led by the hand sometimes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And you can do that in a positive way, which can steer the way people even play, because people play competitively. No matter what baseline set of rules you play, people will find a way to break that, and that's right, because that's nothing wrong with that. If you want to play a hard-nosed version of the game, that's a good way of doing it. But I do wonder whether maybe we'll see some changes in the future that kind of adjust that, so people don't feel, oh, I have to choose 3 dragons because that is just the best option for me to win.
Yeah.
So
You're right.
You can't rely on everyone just to go always pull their punches, especially if you're going to a competitive event and there's 60 plus other people there, and that not everyone else is going to pull them. So you can't have a gentleman's agreement across 60 players. You can with someone down the club when you arrange a game. So it's tricky, and it was always been like, I mean, I will not say always. 7th and 8th edition were like this as well. And there were comp packs, and the community did it before. So nothing's really changed. The noise is similar as well. Net lists were net lists as well. There weren't as many, but people were still posting them on the Warhammer forum back in the pre-Facebook group days. So none of this is really different. It's just a little bit more accessible and from all around the world. You can click on an army list from someone who's played a game in an event in Australia, which you couldn't do quite as easily back in 2012, 2015, something like that. But it's definitely interesting.
I think the other thing is as well, I think society's changed a little bit now. It seems to be more socially acceptable now to play Warhammer. Back when I first started playing it, I mean, I didn't get bullied or beat up or anything, but people say, "Oh, you're playing with toy soldiers." Yeah. But now it's, you're playing, oh, cool, what army do you play? It's like, oh, people kind of know what it is now, don't they? It's and that's obviously kudos to GW for making it what it is. But going back to with the club nights and things as well, and I think the positive just around it is a lot of the people kind of knew each other, and by not by name or face or anything, knew each other on like a forum, for instance. But since we've been getting people together within the Wondering Warlocks Wednesdays, everyone kind of knows each other now, and they go for drinks and stuff after work or after the club or anything. So it's also the social side of it which has helped. But then, like you said, with people talking about what type of game they want, they know that person's good at whatever the army you play. So I fancy a bit of playing the Double Dragon Tomb Kings, for instance, or the Double Dragon Chaos Warriors, and because you know them, and I don't think it feels as bad if you do get a bit of a beating when you're playing against such a good list. You know what I mean? I think it's a little bit more. What's the word? Do you know what I mean? You don't feel as bad when it's someone like your mate, or do you know what I mean?
You know what you're going into,
losing, but it's a little bit nicer in it when you know that person a bit. So I will that helps.
you know what you're going into that game. You know,
Yeah,
you've already
exactly.
had a discussion around what list you're bringing probably, or
Yeah,
what kind of game you're going to play.
yeah,
And I suppose, you know, when you go to an event, when you take a certain kind of list, you're thinking, I'm probably going to be around the bottom tables and I'm going to meet other people on those bottom tables. So that's not something to complain about either in many ways,
no,
I suppose. It's There's mismatches, especially if you're at a club when you arrange a game with someone you've never met before and they turn
yeah,
up with a certain kind and you've got your fluffy list, or the other way
yeah.
around, because that can be such a mismatch that someone doesn't have a good time and maybe you don't play again.
That's it, and that's what we don't want.
And that isn't, yeah, that
Yeah.
isn't so good, but great. But it sounds like you got a nice, and it's about that local community and
Yes. Yeah.
making sure everyone knows what's acceptable, and you just talk to each other.
Yeah.
And in that instance, you could say the game doesn't really need much doing to it because people just need to converse. But there is obviously a lot of conversation around the game. So, what do you think more about the wider community, and from your own experience of going to events and things?
Mhm.
What do you feel around the way the competitive meta is at the moment? Is there a lot of noise about nothing, or do you think there are some things? A bit of a red hot topic, though, I suppose, to drop
Yeah,
in.
it's I think it's so it's so like a bit like I think my opinion I probably I my opinion would probably be completely different to a lot of other people's because I like me personally I'm not a massive, like I said before, I'm not a massive fan of playing competitive. I can and I will play it if I need to.
Mm.
Uh, but for me, I always seem to think it as a, you get the guy that turns up with the three dragons for chaos, for instance, or two high elf dragons, and I'm like, okay, what can I beat that with? Rather than, oh, yeah, I'm not going to beat that.
Yeah,
I'd rather try and have a bit of fun with it and to challenge myself almost. Um, but in terms of the in the wider, I think it's very, I think it's difficult. I think it's what kind of a, I suppose, what kind of a mindset you put yourself in before. I think a lot of the times, and the other thing I found with it with this game is as well, you could have, and this is I'd be well, I mean, we spoke about the Throne of Skulls where I went 0 and 5, and I thought I had quite a decent list, but it turns out I didn't. Um,
mm. Yeah,
so things like that. So like I could have an unkillable Chaos Law, which he didn't die all weekend, but he did absolutely nothing because he couldn't hit anything, because this game is so much more 50-50 than the other GW games are where you're hitting on a set value, wounding on a set value.
yeah,
I think it's almost like, I mean, don't get me wrong, you have got your power pieces, and you like your unkillable dwarf army, which doesn't give point. Like I think it's the Slayers and the
yeah,
Doomseekers and stuff like that, which don't give points away. They just go in murder lord, so oh they died, oh you don't get any points. I'm sorry. So these things like that, and then obviously I think with again going back to list building, you better your odds of winning a game by how you build your list, but then you've still got to roll the dice at the end of the day. And
hmm
it's so much more 50-50 than like I said, any of the other games. And I think, I don't know, I think a lot of the top tier kind of lists can all beat each other as well. So that, yeah, I think it's hard personally, but from my point of view, I always seem a kind of it being a challenger competitive scene. To what, obviously if they're competitive, I want to win the game.
yeah,
Because that's what kind of, if so, to me, if someone's brought that list, they want to win the game slash event or whatever, don't they? That's what they're there for to do. If they brung, like you say, a nice fluffy list, for me, even better because I love the hobby side of it. I love the painting, I love the converting, all that kind of. That's my jam. If I'm being honest, but you can, like, yeah, I think you said before, you can tell the distinct differences, can't you, between the people that really want to do well and people that are, you know what, I'm out for a weekend rolling dice.
yeah,
And I think, to me, I think that's what it should be about. Like, I feel a bit bad talking about Florida Schools. I know you couldn't make it, but Florida Schools
yeah,
amazing because I got to spend a weekend with my mate Dan, who I don't spend that much time with anymore because of real life, basically. And it was a great weekend, and we got to roll dice. So
yeah.
yeah, I think it's kind of, it is split as every kind of competitive meta is, but I I'm going to stick my neck out there. I'm going to say I think it's more less competitive than I think it was in eighth ed,
Yeah,
especially towards the end times when it was just carnage.
yeah.
um, I think it's a lot more hobbyist kind of game. This one, I believe, in my opinion, anyway.
hmm Yeah, again, mostly. from the periphery, but I've seen evidence of all of it, and I definitely think there's, as always, there's lots of hyperbole, and there's people getting very carried away about certain list builds and certain things. I don't think there's nothing there though. I do think there is something that maybe could be addressed in the future if three I mean, I can't think of another edition of Warhammer where you'd even dream of taking more than one dragon. No. Partly it's because they used to get shot from under your characters in 8th edition, but aside from that, it wouldn't have been a thing. It would have been too expensive, too powerful, or not powerful enough. So there is something in the way the game is designed which has meant that that's the right thing to do in terms of winning games, and unfortunately what suffers is infantry. So I wouldn't be sad to see something change there to help encourage the games look more like the Warhammer in the books. But again, that's my idea of Warhammer. It doesn't mean someone who likes the 3 dragons on the table. I'm genuinely not joking about that. If someone likes that game, that style of Warhammer, that's Warhammer. Then it is. I have to accept that. There's no point in me getting angry about it and saying, well, no, but I want to see units. I'd like to, but just my opinion only really matters to me. So, so I think there is something there, but also you're absolutely right that there is sometimes it is a mindset thing. I think the other thing is it's about negative play experience a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of those without dragons though. The Screamer list for the
Screams.
Accounts. I mean, we've had a couple at our event before where the guy playing against the Scream list just didn't engage it. He's like, well, you've brought that. I can't get anywhere near because I die. I'm just going to stay away from you and not die, and we'll play for a draw. And that, like you've just said, that's a negative
castle in the corner.
For both people, and it's it's no good, but that's just what happens.
It's not new though. That's been around for every edition as well, and that's something that is not mentioned enough. That this is just Warhammer, and I think this edition with Warhammer has been very much designed with the same vibe as the old editions of Warhammer. Is that it's not you can play competitively, but it's not designed as a competitive game, in the same way as the other ones weren't. The problem is Games Workshop, for its main games, has moved towards that. So a lot of players who are used to those games or have come to this game new or have been away and played other game systems, maybe played War Machine, maybe played all these games a little bit tighter. This now feels different, but actually it's very much the same as it was. You can argue whether it's right or wrong being that way, but it does feel like a lot of the arguments are, as a community, we have to understand that the core game's great for playing casual narrative games, and if you want to play competitively and there are issues you see, then the community will deal with it. And I don't think that's a bad thing either. And we don't have to have one. It's always nice seeing different types of events around as well. This compact does this and that. And I think it's quite exciting that we're seeing all of that conversation at the moment. It feels like people are a bit angry and trying to fix the game. But to me, this is just people, the community coming together and finding different ways of making the game what they think it should be. Everyone has their own little flavour, and then there's events everywhere, so you can choose. You go, well, I don't like that compact, I want to go to this one, I want to go to this one.
That's it.
And eventually they will whittle down to a handful. That's because that's
that's it, isn't it? Because like we said at the beginning, there is that many now, and they have all got different packs. I'm sure mine are completely to anyone else's out there. But yeah, I think in terms of the game itself, so I don't think it needs messing with personally. I quite like it the way it is, because it is like we said earlier, it's that different and diverse. You can play competitive, you can play narrative, however you want. There's no one saying you can or can't play whichever way you want. There is more than one way to play this game. As I said, for all GW games, just like we said previously, they tend to stick to the more competitive side in the other games, don't they? Whereas this one, I think it's more the nostalgia, isn't it? And there's something about seeing a massive army in ranks compared to stuff hid behind buildings, let's say. And I'm sorry, 40k players, but
yeah. I mean, as someone who played War Machine and didn't mind circular neoprene things for objectives.
Oh, yeah, the 2D terrain.
Yeah, I didn't. Not so much. I was never a fan of that so much. No, it feels like that's gone away now. But
yeah.
But it feels less. It feels a bit more odd for me still looking at games of 40k when every building looks like the same L shape and stuff. And I get it from a logic point of view, but you also you're losing the soul of it a little bit there, in my opinion. But of course, there will be people playing away from events that just play it as a narrative game, and
narrative
it will work perfectly as well.
Yeah,
And what do we hear
that,
about online? It feels like, and again, I'm going to be very careful how I say this, because it feels like I'm saying a dig now. I'm not, but I would say the majority of people talking about the game are talking about it from a competitive viewpoint.
I agree.
It's not people
absolutely.
there talking about that, because it's not as interesting to watch. You know, what did you do? I painted had a big game in my garage. Not many people are going to watch that. People are interested in the rules and how to win and all those things. So it can feel very much like that everyone's talking about unbalances in the game and what's an issue, and they're not. That's just what makes good content and what people are interested in. But the reality is, when you go down to club level, people are probably playing very normal games of war.
Just whatever you like. They turn up to well, from what I've seen, they play anything and everything. So which is always good. Which is always
though you were unlucky to come up against 3 dragons at the Throne of Skulls.
I mean, that's
but
it,
again,
but
they've
it
not
isn't
run
it?
a Throne of Skulls for Warhammer in 10 years at least, have they? Maybe longer. And if you've not played a Throne of Skulls for another system and know the vibe tends to be a little bit for Middle Earth, it's a bit more laid back, but again, you still get good lists. It's very themey, display boards everywhere, that kind of thing. But it was the first one, so you're going to get people that have never played in one, maybe have only played Warhammer in that edition, so they don't know what to expect.
That's it.
And that's all you can do is try to deliver that through the pack, and it did a little bit with the magic and the character thing. I thought that was quite nice. It's a subtle light touch to trim some of it off, doesn't do it all, and maybe you could do more. Just playing around with percentages, I think.
That's all it is.
I quite like the High Elf Arcane Journal with the minimum 33s on the core. There's a bit more of that, but it probably can wait a lot of this to a second edition. Unless they do bring out a match play guide, and again, I won't go into that too much because I've done a video on it. But you could then bring it out as a set of suggestions, but it's not core, and then it's separate from those core rules. It doesn't affect a narrative player, doesn't affect people playing in their garage, but it's a kind of, this is what we recommend, but of course you then build on top of that or leave bits out, and then and it would work. But I wouldn't do any more than that. I don't think we should be. I don't think we should be doing balance updates. I don't think we should be rewriting core rules, changing bits beyond subtle changes in FAQs. I think we should stick with the core of it. Is that aside, I've got no issues with what they did with the legacy armies, what Val did with that. There's a lot of love gone into that, and they are in a different place, those factions. And again, it's optional, isn't it? So if you don't like that, you don't go to the event that's running that. So really, no, I think it's probably in a really good place, but it feels at times like people are a little bit upset and a bit angsty about the rules. But actually, the reality is people are just really enjoying and loving the game. And this announcement for these 3 factions over what I'm going to guess is the summer just shows actually where the passion really is for the game. People aren't that worried.
I think that's the thing. I think they completely they underestimated how popular it would be, didn't they? I think that was clearly one of the things that's hit them, like, oh my god, people are loving this. Let's crank it up. And I mean, obviously, this, as we all know how GW work, this release was always going to happen anyway. It's like you've just said, it's be interesting what happens after this now, and see how they up the game a little bit. Do they take it to the world that was as it wasn't? The old 8th Ed fantasy and all the old characters back. I'd love to see it, but it'd be interesting to see if they get that way with it.
I don't think they got a plan that far ahead. I imagine they've got a loose penciled in plan to head towards the Great War Against Chaos, because it feels like a logical thing to do. And now it's done so well, maybe that's becoming from pencil to pen, metaphorically, of course, but maybe they're starting to think that could be the future, and that's how we see other factions come back, maybe. But these things have all been talked at nauseam before by people. But I'm really positive about it. We might see those things. We will see more. I'm convinced that we will see more now after this, unless something goes wrong with the Cathay release, which I can't say. There is something that's going to go wrong. Let's face it. It's going to be
out of stock that much. That's the problem.
It's going to be a nightmare because people are going to hate hate on GW for a few weeks until they can get it.
Yeah.
But aside from the blip that there's bound to be, I think it's going to be really positive and sell really well and put the
Touch what
game.
it is, because I want it all.
Yes, yeah.
I'm just excited to paint. Is it Miao Ying, the dragon lady? I just want to paint the actual human. The dragon's lovely, but the human's incredible. It's so nice.
Yeah.
It reminds me. I don't know if you saw. Is it Ephriel Stern, the sister of
Yes.
Battle?
Yeah.
Similar vibes to her, because she's kind of floating down on the rocks, isn't she?
Yeah. You're
Very
right.
similar
Actually,
vibes to her. And I
didn't make
love
that
that
connection.
model. Yeah.
It is lovely. I like the lantern.
Yes, the lantern.
That says a lot about me, probably more than like the
Yeah.
dragon. They're all right, but I want the lantern. And not
Yeah.
only I want the lantern, but I also want a second lantern, and I want to find a paper lantern the same size and make it into a lampshade.
Yes. Perfect.
So paint that is probably really bad for any fire safety officers. Don't listen to me, but I love the idea of having that basket on the bottom of a lampshade. Not that you can see it here, but my lamp in this room. So when I burned down my house, I've tried that. But it's a crazy idea. The lantern. I love the crew. There's so much character. I quite like the crew from the War Machine as well. You've got that old man pulling the thing, and you've got the ogres as well. So. Those are the bits that stand out for me. You've got all these powerful warriors, and I like the old dude and
the old man,
and the big lantern, the peasants.
That's it.
We touched on it at the beginning about miniature availability. So these are other things that I think build into how the community's feeling, because there's been a lot of angst at times about not being able to get what people want, and we touched on it then. But it feels like, and I know people are going to put in the comments because they always will, but it feels like, apart from the very latest release, it feels like the other release, if you go back and look at the Warriors of Chaos now and look at Empire and stuff, it's pretty much all there. And the High Elf stuff, we're still waiting on waves. The High Elf stuff, the resins and stuff are all out at the moment in the UK. I don't know, it's about all the different... Aside from that, it does feel like they've caught up quite well, that they've reacted better. So the new releases seem to be staying in stock, so the battalions aren't going out like that. I know someone put on the Facebook group about the High Elves can't be selling because the battalion's not sold out. It's like, so I bet you moaned that the battalion was sold out on the previous one, but now you're moaning because it's not sold out. But it feels like it's improvement, or maybe it's just me.
Yeah, no, I think with that, it's probably because everyone's buying the dragons. Dragons and the cavalry. That's probably why
that did sell out pretty quick, though, didn't it?
Nobody wants to run spearmen and archers and chariots. Nobody wants that, really.
There is a bit of that.
That's the way I like to play elves, but I think you're right. Yeah, I think pretty much everything up to the High Elves now is out, I believe, or at least available. Sorry, not available because of the out of stock thing. Trying to think what could be missing apart from, like I said, the High Elf bit. I think everything is pretty much, apart from obviously the next few waves of the High Elves bits. I know obviously they've announced wave 2, aren't they, this week?
I was hoping it was going to be a bit bigger than that. We've obviously got a wave 3 coming. I want some sky cutters. I really want a sky cutter.
I do. Yeah. So there's the sky cutters to come. Dragon Princes, Silver Helms, I believe, as well.
All the cavalry, basically.
All the cavalry,
Mages is a weird one.
Mages as well. Yeah, mages as well. Trying to think what else. I should know because I literally...
Chariots on their own?
Obviously the battalion boxes split up, aren't they? Yeah. So, there's still at least
quite a lot.
Another 2 waves, surely, or at least another
There'll
one.
be a wave 3, I think, and then I'm guessing an major water is whether they, or maybe a bit smaller major. The only thing I can think is they just hit a roadblock with lots of other stuff. And can you imagine having, what was it, the new AOS faction, the new
Soul Black Gravy Lords.
Can you imagine having that box as the main release, which it was, and then 20 High Elf boxes taking up the rest of the article? I almost wonder whether they're like, sorry, you can't steal the limelight. You're going to have to split your waves up a bit more, and just so you're tagged on the bottom of something else. It might not be that at all, but it does feel like that they've kind of it's too busy, and some of the other games need some time.
I think if you think logically and with your business head on, I mean, not everyone has that, know that, but if you brought everything out in one go. And I don't know, say for instance, I play AOS as well sometimes. and I've got 40k behind me somewhere in that corner. But if you play all of the games, you're not going to have enough money to buy everything. Or you may do, but the normal working man doesn't have £300 to spend on everything that releases on said army. Then they've got to buy the Soul White Gravelords stuff. Then they've got to buy the new 40k. The Slanesh, I believe, have come out. The Emperor's Children, is it? Yeah. So,
yeah, they look nice.
Because they're pretty much coming out every week now, you just physically cannot afford it unless you've won the lottery. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's almost like we were talking about the bloat of events. You don't really want a bloat of stock, because then you're not looking forward to something in the future. Like, oh,
yeah,
I know everyone, people are complaining about it and stuff, but if you had to buy everything within that window and then it all goes out of stock, you're going to then be waiting for however long it is to come back in stock again, aren't you? Rather than buying it bit by bit and bit by bit, building your army up that way.
Yeah, I think it's a world of difference to where we were at with it, and I know people will still complain, but it's the noise isn't how do we play this game? We're going to have to 3D print everything. To now, those are just alternatives, because if you want the official stuff, it's pretty much all there. And I know again there will be comments below. So how do you feel the community feel about the lore at the moment, and how well? Because we both like our narrative stuff.
Yeah, I do like the narrative stuff. I think there needs to be a bit more of it. I think it's not come to a standstill. I think because obviously when you play the game, you're almost, because this is uncharted territory. There's not a lot about this period of the old world.
Yeah,
you know what factions are about and stuff like that, and you know what's in the arcane journals. But in terms of what people are doing within that thing, that's for the community and the gamers themselves to create that narrative for me. Obviously little bits and pieces here and there with the GW releases, like we said, the arcane journals, the bits the community ones, like the elf missions and stuff like that, the waystones. Was it the 500 point one? She was captured the tower one, wasn't it?
The tower one. Yeah.
I forget what the third one was. Clearly no one's ever played it, because nobody knows what the third one is. There's like the 3 waystone node one, where I can defend, and then I just completely forget what the third one is. But
I got too focused on the 500 point restrictions, and exactly. I was like, right, that's it.
Which was great. I mean, that again, that you can swing your narrative around that. It's a little raiding party or defense force, or scouting force, and I think that's what I like about it, the way it is at the minute. Because a lot of, obviously, we already know what happens from the World War was to the end times, because that's all been written and done before. We kind of know what's going off in and around, because of the Total War games in and around that area as well. In terms of now, obviously all the previous stuff with how, Gilles de Breton creates the Bretonians, brings all the Bretonnian tribes together. How Sigmar brings all the empire together. We know all that, but then this is the part now for the players in the community to tell the narrative, I guess.
Yes, yeah.
And I think as well, I mean, this is obviously the specialist team that does the All World aren't big enough to write the narrative. I don't think, unfortunately, they're that focused on meeting our supply and demands for new models and stuff. So I don't mind it. The setting's great as it is. Again, from owning all the armies, reading all the arcane journals and all the fluff, the setting there for us, it's for us now to tell the story, I believe, in my opinion.
Again, really positive way of looking at it. I think on most part I agree with you. As a team, you were spot on. There's, let's face it, there's two guys, I think. Unless there's someone else we don't know about. So there's 2 guys I know of that write for the game. One's the main rules writer. One is the supporting rules writer, and does a lot of the lore and stuff as well. So they're not going to produce epics for everything.
No.
I do think there is a bit of hole, just probably unavoidably created by that, because we don't have full army books anymore.
No,
you're new coming to the game, and you don't have that pre-knowledge of, like us. If you're new, you have your core rule book and the lore in there, which is pretty good and expanded well beyond into areas that I wouldn't have expected. All the talk about Stalio and the Dogs of War and stuff, it's like, well, okay. But actually, your arcane journals is focused very much on this microcosm of what's going on in the campaign, which is a really good way of doing it, because they don't have the word count on the pages to do anymore. But because of that, you might come to Bretonnian New using that example, and the lore that's in the core rulebook is really stripped down, and there's none of that real background in the Arcane Journal. So really, if you're new to the game, you can only find out all that rich lore background by going on going on eBay and buying an out-of-date army book or finding it online.
Online,
but that's not an official way. So I think in some ways, hopefully in the future the game can grow and maybe they can put more of that in some kind of future Arcane Journal or army books or whatever becomes, because that is now currently missing from the game. But it's great it's there if you want to find it, but officially it's missing. The other side is the novel side. I was a bit disappointed that there was only...
I was just about to say the novels would be a great way to reintroduce it, because obviously they've got the books there. They could reprint them. They could, I mean,
there's issues with them, though, isn't there? There's issues because some of the... So I'm reading Malekith at the moment, or just finished it, for a book club that I do with the Jordan Sorcery on his channel. And obviously, he's not called Malekith anymore.
No.
So I don't even know if they ever recorded audios for those, but they're not going to be on Audible because the name's wrong. And I do wonder, there's stuff that they could bring back, that there are a host of problems like that, so that prevents them. So I want to see more. I'd love to see more novels. I wonder if we're going to see one with the launch of Cathay. So if you're going to have a second novel, it would be a perfect thing to do on that launch. And again, it feels like topping and tailing my assumed end of the cycle. So you've got your Bretonnia book at the beginning with Tomb Kings, and at the end of the cycle, another big hardback book written by someone who knows, might be Graham McNeil again, that says it's Cathay versus something or other, and there's a big story around that. They introduces that faction, brilliant. The other positive, though, is we've got the Old World RPG launching very, very soon from Cubicle 7. So that's focusing on a new town very close to Talabheim land, near Talabheim, I think. That's a new town they've named. But again, that will give us an idea of, is the Empire what we think it is? I think it is. I think the Empire is the way we remember it from the 2500s. But again, as they start to grow that, if it sells, that will be good as well. So I'm really excited to see that and get my hands on that. I've currently got lined up, it's not happened yet, an interview with the main guys at Cubicle 7 talking about that. I will be bringing some content on that because I'm really excited to see how that dovetails in with the wider game. So do keep an eye on the channel for that, because as soon as I'm able to bring some content around it, I will do. That there is another angle, I suppose. There's another angle into the game it will be official canon because it's a licensed product.
That's it. I mean, I've actually never played an RPG, weirdly, and that probably the one I would like to play, because again, it's the old world setting. It's what got me in the hobby in the first place. So that I'd love to do something like that. I mean, it might be something I could buy for the actual club, to be fair, and we could run it ourselves, because down at Patriot where we are, they have their own RPG club anyway, and maybe we can just do that on a Wednesday night instead of having the all world game. So that's be something I'll be definitely tuning in for anyway, and having a look and see what's
it'll be full of lore, full of background, colour pictures and maps and stuff anyway, which is great. But it'll be I've not RPG'd since I was 15 with the first edition Woofrup Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay either. So for me, it will be a very much a tentative return to having a look at it. But I just want to own the books as a first point.
But look at all the pictures.
Absolutely look at the pictures. But I want to dip my toe into it and give it a go as well and see what it's like. So it feels like there's something there. But I do think they could have. I don't think the team could have done more. But it feels like there's something missing, and maybe it's Black Library is where that gap could have been filled a bit more.
Just need a bit of help, don't they? That's all it is.
Because you can't do it all in a short period of time. I'm sure in 5 years' time it won't be an issue, because there'll be enough growth of lore, more things written, and a few more novels, and then we'll feel like we're in a place that's full of the lore anyway.
I don't think it'd be a mainstream game, as much as 40k and AOS is in a year or so time. Me personally, that's what I hope for it, and it's definitely going in the right direction, in my opinion.
I think it feels like the sales could get to the point where they can't ignore it in that sense, which would be amazing, because more and more money can get plowed into it. then. I mean, there's enough hardback books produced for Necromunda, so that
Yeah,
there's
there
no
is.
reason why they couldn't start doing that
Yeah.
for Old World as well. But I know Tony
Please.
loves Tony loves his Necromunda, doesn't he? I suppose we're getting close to the end now, but I suppose what
Yeah.
dovetails nicely into that is the support from Games Workshop. I feel, I'm leading you here, I suppose, but I feel that it's pretty good. I know a lot of people will say it's not because they want stuff fixed from the rule point of view, which we touched on and covered earlier. But I think for SDS, I think they've done a great job with it, and the articles are normally pretty good when they're involved. And I feel like the support's pretty good, really. We've had
I agree.
FAQs. I would only expect a couple a year anyway, so it meets my expectations. But what about from your point of view and from the community that you're within? What do you think players?
Yeah, I think in terms of the actual FAQs and the support itself, I think we're almost led by GW anyway. We can only play what is written in front of. Maybe that's how I play. I'm very much black and white. We'll play whatever's. So again, going with events, we're all rulebook led. Obviously, with some slight changes if we need to change certain things. But you can only, unless you do like you said, a Val and create your own FAQ for it.
Yeah,
You're only ever going to be supported by GW, and I don't think, like we said earlier, I don't think the game necessarily needs it as big a support as maybe people are crying out for.
yeah.
But I think the support we do get, like the articles, I mean, again, I know they're all is it what they call the Alamacs when you get the
Almanacs, yeah.
Almanacs, previews from for the armies and stuff like that. They were always out. They always had a bit of fluff. They had some rules teasers in there and stuff like that. So I think that's always a good thing. In terms of like the community things, they didn't have to bring out those new missions for us, but they did.
Yeah.
So I think I think they're doing it again. Going back to the size of the team, they're doing a good job for how big the team is.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think in terms of our community, I think we're quite laid back. I mean, I think I've got it very lucky. I'm not going to lie. I could have quite easily had a hell of a lot harder people to please, but my personal kind of feeling towards it and how it's going is going quite smoothly. There's not really been anything I've had to really dig my heels and say, right, you can't do that, you can't do that. I never do that anyway, because that's just not me. I like to let people, like, I know there was a lot of thing about people running the 17 gyrocopters or whatever it was, and I was like, well, to be quite honest, if someone's sat down, printed 17 gyrocopters, who am I to tell them they can't use them?
Yeah.
But, I mean, fair play, they've done it. But yeah, in terms of support, I think no, I think they're doing all right. I'm going to sound like a complete GW mad kind of guy here, but yeah, I think there's definitely it's quite a lot of support from my point of view, and they do really well with stuff. Like I said, there's always something. I think that's the good thing about the social media team as well. There's always something coming out daily by Games Workshop, whether it be just asking, what have you painted today? Show us what the show show us that. And I think that's what brings the community together as well, because people are going, I mean, I share a lot of things on Wondering Warlocks on the Facebook page. And the other day, what did I put on? It was the I bought 45 Goblin Wolf Riders. I put on, do I have enough wolves? I had like nearly 300 interactions or whatever it was. People saying, no, you don't. Like, oh, okay. But things like that, I think it brings people together. And then there were people within that having the conversation. So I think in terms of support, I don't think they're doing that bad.
No. Yeah, we'll probably be crucified for both agreeing on it.
I know, yeah.
I'm obviously a GW shill. They send me stuff, don't they? So that's it.
Yeah, well, that's it.
But again, I'm not looking for any more. I think
no, that's it.
I think the community's done a great job of filling any gaps where you maybe need it, or not need it. Some people want it, and then it's fulfilled for those people.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you scroll back now through, and I do this often because I need to find pictures for videos. But you scroll back through all those almanacs, and you click on the Warhammer community page and click on the Old World bit and see how many articles there have been. There's a lot of content now. Yes, it's marketing. I get it, but it's there's a lot of pretty pictures. There's a lot of stuff that tells you about the game and the factions. So if you are new coming to it, there's a lot of resource there now. It'd be nice if they feel you could filter that easily by faction or something now, but that's a web design issue. But there's a lot of stuff there that if you came to this game now, that you got a lot of resource there from the main guys, from the main studio. There's a lot of product, generally a lot of positivity. Even the biggest Facebook groups are mostly positive now. Anywhere there's a lot of people, you'll always find the negatives, as we said, but it feels like it's in a really good place overall. And then the things that people complain about, to me anyway, mate, as an old aging man, feels like the kind of things that people complained about in the previous editions of when there was a large online community. We don't know what it was like in 4th or 5th edition because it was a different world back then, but since 7th and 8th edition, all the things people complain about now are the same but different as they were back then, and events are writing compacts, and that's it really. There was always killer lists back then. The only thing I'd like to see is the games look a bit more Warhammerish would be my one thing.
I agree with that.
If that can be done via community compacts or something from GW, great. But it's not about the 3 dragons, it's more about what's not on the table because of the
aesthetically pleasing, I think the word, isn't it?
Yeah.
Visually stunning. That's what you want.
Well, I think we've kind of covered that in general. So thank you very much for agreeing to spend some time talking Warhammer, the old world. Where can people find you?
So we're on Facebook. We do have X as well, Twitter, whatever it's called these days. We do have an Instagram account as well, although I've only just recently set that up, so there'll not be much on there. But it's all it's Wondering Warlocks, not one. So it's WO, not WA. So might have been an error on my part. But we've stuck with it, and it's stayed. So we're wondering about things rather than wondering about. So, but it also might be the Sheffield accent as well, because it sounds the same word. So
it does.
But so we're Wondering Warlocks Facebook, Instagram, and X/Twitter now. We've also got a Discord as well, which is actually a wider Sheffield South Yorkshire kind of Discord. But we're quite active on that as a group. But that's where our main kind of Wednesday night group is within the Sheffield and South Yorkshire area. But obviously we're the main kind of culprits of it all. But so it's the Wandering Warlocks, and then obviously the events are also they're all on the Facebook and stuff as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're in the area and you're looking for games, it sounds like might be a bun fight to get a table. It sounds like you said properly, but also you definitely hook you up. And then the rallying cry as well. People can find you.
The rallying, of course. Yeah, God, I can't come on here and not say that.
Those
two will kill me, Liam and Jack. Yeah, no, yeah. So the rallying cry is obviously on YouTube now, which is a video podcast, I guess. Which we're doing. We're trying to get every 2 weeks. We've just filmed episode 4, so I'm actually going to edit this tonight when we're finished, and then it should be out within the next few days or so. So yeah, look that on YouTube as well.
Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And thank you very much again to Dan for agreeing to spend your time chatting to me about Warhammer, the old world. Just before we go, just wanted to let you know that I currently have Miniature Realms dice for sale. And if you're not a member of any of my social media platforms or the Discord or something, you may not have seen those. So I've decided to mention it in a video as well. There'll be a link in the video description or an email in the video description of how you can go about ordering them. So please do get in touch if you'd like to buy some Miniature Realms dice. But other than that, if you've enjoyed the video, please do give it a like, drop a comment below. Love to know what your thoughts are on how the community's doing for Warhammer the Old World as well. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and if you'd like to support further, please do check out those links in the video description. Dan's of course as well, but I also have my Patreon in there and a few affiliate links as well. But thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you soon.